Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hitting Bags and Stilling Balls. I'm your host, Matthew Fitzwater. Today is Tuesday, April 8th, and we got some more series recaps for you, alright? So we'll be going over the weekend of Friday, April 4th, through Sunday, April 6th, and a couple games took place on Thursday, April 3rd, okay, that I didn't want to cover on last episode, simply because they were part of series this weekend. But before we get into all that, I did want to mention you're going to start seeing some changes, on the social media and obviously on YouTube and on Spotify. Also trying to get onto Apple Podcasts, and they do not make it easy whatsoever. I mean, Spotify was a breeze, YouTube obviously, a breeze, but my gosh, do they make it difficult to get on Apple Podcasts. But hopefully within the next month, you'll see me on there. But most of you, if you're clicking on this, have probably noticed I've got some new thumbnails, which I'm very excited about, okay? I love how they look. You're going to see two different ones, okay? There's going to be some on my social media. You're going to see a mixture on YouTube, and then obviously the one you're going to see on Spotify. So definitely very excited about that. Just trying to mix things up, keep things interesting, obviously having me sitting here in front of the microphone as every single thumbnail, while it's okay, I want to take that next step. I'm also working on an animation as an intro for YouTube. So hopefully, again, within the next month, I'll have that. No promises, but looking forward to whenever I get that up. Also, I just want to say, if you're new here, thank you for joining me. If you can, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Spotify, and again, just share, you guys. The game of baseball is the best when you can talk about it with your friends, and so just share, get me out there, and it's going to be a fun and exciting season. It's kind of a work in progress right now. I'm trying to figure out the best course of action when going over these series, and I think today's episode is going to have the best option. I'm always about changing things, so if there's something in the, something in the way I do it you don't like, feel free to comment, let me know. But I do think my format for this episode is going to be pretty solid. So in the past, I went day by day, kind of just told you some stuff that happened that day, told you, the games, and I didn't really tell you the score of any games, and then at the end I went over the series, but I'm going to do it differently. So now I'm going to go series by series. I'm going to recap each day if there were any, highlights, any standout players that you need to, basically go back and watch if you really want to. Highlights, things like that. But I'm going to tell you the scores of games now. I feel like that's important. I'm going to tell you who won each game. And then at the end, I won't have to go over the series, who takes 2 out of 3, whatever, because I'll just tell you as I go. And also, I'll finish it off with the standings, okay? So that's a fun segment just to see, series by series where the standings are at. Because this early in the season, it changes a lot. It's not going to change as much down the road, although I'm still going to go over them. And then starting next week, once we hit around 20 games played, maybe not quite that much, but around there, I'm going to start telling you stat leaders. So still not going to do that yet because it still is very early, but the stat leaders are coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And I just want this to be a quick, easy way, 40 minutes twice a week, just to see, just so you know what's going on in baseball, just to get the series recaps. I don't want to take too long. I know everybody ain't got, an hour and a half in their day, so definitely I hope you guys appreciate that. I hope this is a good way for a lot of you to get your baseball news, and that's really what I'm aiming for with this podcast. It's a good way for me to talk about baseball, which is what I love doing, and it's a good way for you guys to get, quick series recaps. And then last week, I noticed that I had brought up the Jerickson Profar suspension, and I said I was going to talk about it to the end of the video, and I forgot, which is a classic thing for me to do. For those of you that know me, my memory is awful. But I'll go ahead, I'll breeze over that real fast. And it's very disappointing to see. And the reason it's mainly disappointing is because when you look at his stats last year, He obviously had the best year of his career, which is what led him to getting paid by the Braves, this past offseason. And I forget exactly what they call it. He didn't get busted for steroids. He got busted for something that is supposed to get your testosterone back on a normal cycle after steroids. So clearly, last year was an outlier because he took steroids, which is such a disappointment, man. Especially when you basically rob the Braves of that money, and then he could have taken a job from somebody else, man. I mean, the Braves owner or GM came out during the offseason and said they thought he was like the second best hitter on the market, which not sure how true that is, But if that's really how they viewed him, then clearly they had him above a lot of other outfielders, and he cheated. It comes down to that. I hate saying that because I'm sure he's a good guy, off the field, but when you use steroids on the field, you're a cheater, man. And I get that back then it was a different era because I'm in defense of guys like Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, just because I think that brought a whole new wave into baseball and it made it more exciting for younger fans. But nowadays, we're in a new era and it just can't be allowed. So I'm definitely disappointed in Jerickson Profar. If he comes back and he looks like he did last year, then it's a step in the right direction, but I just don't think it's going to happen. If you want my realistic opinion, I think that was an outlier for a reason, and I wouldn't be surprised if his career is just not over. He's still got some years left, especially because the Braves, gave him that contract, but he could very well find himself out of a starting role moving forward. So, again, for those of you that don't know, he's out for half the season and the playoffs this year, so although the Braves have a litany of outfielders, to say the least, they've got 6 or 7 that they can plug in there, but none of them are really, other than Michael Harris and Acuna, they're starters. None of them are really, superstars. So just wanted to mention that since I'd clearly forgotten about it last week. But I also want to mention really quickly before we get into the series, I know I'm talking your head off, okay? You just want baseball. But I'm trying to streamline my social media, okay? That way you ain't got to type in, hitting bags and stealing balls to find me on everything, because I noticed that when people would search my name up on YouTube, they couldn't find me. So, now on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, okay? I tried to get X. X wouldn't let me change it, but on those other 3 platforms, you can now find me at HBSB Baseball. That's simple, okay? Just abbreviation of the name and then baseball at the end. So, and then you also, if you go to most of those pages, you'll find my Linktree link. You can just click that. It'll take you to everything that I've got available. So there's that too, but I just want to make that clear. That way, go follow my social media, you guys. That helps me kind of get an idea of who is actively paying attention to what I'm posting, what I'm doing. You'll get updates on all those, when a new episode drops, or especially on X, when big news happens, you'll get a retweet. So you'll see it immediately. So just, if you can, go follow all those. Again, share to everything. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll jump right in. So to start, we've got a couple series where nothing of highlights, nothing of worth talking about really happened. There's going to be a couple mentions, but we'll start with the 2 series that started on Thursday instead of Friday. Okay, and first we'll talk about the Houston Astros as they travel to Minnesota to take on the Twins. And the first 2 games, nothing really happened. So on Thursday, the Astros get the win. The score is 5-2. And then you skip Friday. On Saturday, the Twins come back and they get a 6-1 win. So series tied up going into Sunday. And this one was a close one. So the Twins used 7 bullpen pitchers to keep the score close all game. And they were getting ready to close it out. And the Astros, man, they scored 2 in the 9th to tie it. And then they scored 2 immediately in the 10th inning. And they get the win. So the Astros end up winning that game 9-7. And they take the series 2-3. Next up, we got a 4-game series. The Cincinnati Reds travel to the Milwaukee Brewers. All right. And This was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're just going to blow through it. The Brewers take the first two with scores of 1-0 and then 3-2. The Reds are famous for losing those close games, man. The Reds bounce back on Saturday, okay? They take game 3, and then the Brewers close the series out with a win. The Brewers end up taking 3 out of 4, all right? And the Saturday score was 11-7 as the Reds hit 4 home runs. And then on Sunday, Jackson Chourio had a job to do. He gets 5 RBIs on a 2-homer game as the Brewers win 8-2. And also, I just want to mention, there's a clip out there that people are talking about, and it kind of made me a little disappointed. So Jake Fraley had a ball that was hit on the ground to him, okay? He didn't fill it cleanly. It went right under him. And the effort he showed to go back and get it at the wall, man, it's disappointing to see. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating. If you can, go check out the clip, okay, because it looked like horrible effort. I mean, it looked like he was barely jogging, man. And I get it's frustrating when you're losing a game, but you've got to show effort. I mean, and he's not a great fielder to begin with. I'm pretty sure he's a platoon. I don't think he even starts every game. But yeah, I mean, you can't do that. You know, Cincinnati needs players that put in effort, or they're just going to continue to finish 3rd or 4th in that division, man. So I didn't like that from Jake Fraley, but, you know, that was pretty much a commanding series for the Brewers. Like I said, they took 3 out of 4, so not really much to say there. We'll move on. Next up, the Chicago White Sox traveled to Detroit to take on the Tigers, and it didn't go well. The Tigers got the sweep, all right, starting on Friday. We've got a score of 7-4, followed by 7-2, and then finally, Torkelson hits a 2-run walk-off double on Sunday to give the Tigers the walk-off win to end the series in a sweep. All right, the final score was 4-3. So, you know, obviously Detroit is going to be a big deal in the Central this year, but it's the White Sox. So there's not too much to say. Although for the White Sox, Mark Perez actually pitched 6 1/3 innings and only allowed 1 run in that final game, but it wasn't enough. The Tigers ended up coming back late and getting the walk-off win. So good for Detroit. Next up, we've got the A's going to Colorado to face the Rockies. And the A's win the first 2 games 6-3 and 7-4 before Chase Dollander, I believe that's how you pronounce that, makes his major league debut, okay, for the Colorado Rockies. And for those of you that don't know, going into the season, he's the 25th ranked prospect in all of baseball, okay? He's supposed to be the real deal, although pitching in Colorado doesn't really help your numbers, okay? So he's going to have a little bit of a struggle, but he is supposed to be that guy. So I'm rooting for him, of course. I love seeing young kids come up. Makes his debut on Sunday. He gets the win. The Rockies end up winning, but he did give up 4 runs in 5 innings pitched. So not too great of a start, but the Rockies get the win to close out the series. A's take 2 of 3. Next up, we got the Diamondbacks at Nationals, okay, and the D-backs start the series off with a win, 6-4, before the Nationals come back and win the next 2 to end the series, okay? So the Nationals end up taking that middle game with a score 4-3, and then they take the last game 5-4. So definitely a close series. A little surprised that the Nationals were able to hold out and win the final 2 games. But that middle game had a weird pitching line, so Eduardo Rodriguez for the Diamondbacks, okay, he struck out 12 in 5 innings, but gave up 4 runs. So he had it and then didn't have it. Pitching definitely can be weird, but striking out 12 guys in 5 innings, I mean, they're not seeing you, but apparently eventually they did, because like I said, he gave up 4 runs. So that was a little weird to see. And then finally, in the Sunday game to close out the series, Corbin Carroll was a home run shy of the cycle. And then Corbin Carroll and Lourdes Gurriel both threw out a runner trying to score. So definitely, I love outfield assists, man. To see outfielders gun guys down trying to score. So for them to get 2 in the same game definitely was pretty cool to watch. So go watch those if you haven't. Them guys, they threw the ball, man. So, but the Nationals held out, and they got the series win. They took 2 of 3. Next up, we got the Orioles at Kansas City to face the Royals. And in Game 1, Kansas City came out firing. They get the win 8-2. And then, on Saturday, Bobby Witt Jr. hit his first home run of the season. But That'd be the only run that Kansas City scores as the Orioles win Game 2, 8-1, and Jackson Holliday with a 3-hit day. We love to see it. And then finally, Kansas City comes back and they take the series. They win that game 4-1 as Chris Bubic, I believe, again, that's how you pronounce it. Some of these names are wild, man, but he throws 6 2/3 innings of one-run ball as the Kansas City Royals close out the series with a win 4-1. And then the Tampa Bay Rays travel to Texas to take on the Rangers, and the Rangers get the sweep. They win the first game 5-2, the second game 6-4, and then Jonah Heim walks off the final game on Sunday for a 4-3 win. And Corey Seager hits his first home run of the season that game. But in the middle game, a little scary situation as Jacob deGrom gives up 4 runs in 5 2/3 innings. But as you know, the Rangers hold on to win, and they get the series sweep against the Tampa Bay Rays. And then the Miami Marlins travel to Atlanta to face the Braves, and the Braves start the weekend off with their first win of the season as Spencer Swellenbach throws 8 scoreless innings. Keep his name in the back of your mind, you guys. He's the real deal, and he's going to keep dealing for them. And the Braves win 10-0. And then the next day, Miami comes back and wins 4-0. So the series gets split there as the third game gets postponed and will get played at a later date. I'm not sure when. But Braves get their first one of the season, and we'll see if they can continue from there. And then the New York Yankees play their first road series of the season as they travel to Pittsburgh to play the Pirates. In the first 2 games, the Yankees get the win, 9-4 and then 10-4. And then the Yankees try for the series sweep as they tie it late in the 9th with 2 outs. They have a 3-run rally to take it to extras, but they can't capitalize, and the Pirates end up getting the walk-off to salvage the series. Yankees take 2 out of 3 from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then the Seattle Mariners would travel to San Francisco to try to beat the Giants, and the Giants would say, no, no, no. And they win all 3 games for the series sweep, including 2 walk-offs in the first and third game. But there were 2 highlights that I think you guys should check out. In the middle game, Julio Rodriguez throws out Willy Adames trying to stretch a single into a double, and they have a little bit of fun with each other. And then in that final game, Victor Robles for the Seattle Mariners makes an amazing play diving into foul territory for the ball. Unfortunately, he gets hurt landing into the net, but still an amazing play that I think you all should go check out. Those games end with a score of 10-9, 4-1, and 5-4. And then the Red Sox would invite the St. Louis Cardinals into Boston for an absolute bloodbath on Friday, as both pitchers, Walker Buehler and Eric Fedde, give up 5 runs in just a couple of innings, but the Boston Red Sox hold out to win 13-9 on the first game of that series. So the Cardinals would try to bounce back on Saturday, but the weather wouldn't have it, and the game gets postponed for a doubleheader on Sunday. Rafael Devers hits his first home run of the season in that second game, and Wilyer Abreu walks it off as the Red Sox take Game 1 of Sunday. And then the Cardinals would try to salvage the series in Game 2 of the Sunday doubleheader, but the Red Sox wouldn't have any of it. Rafael Devers goes 4 for 4 with 2 doubles and a walk as the Red Sox would hit 9 total doubles that day and get a decisive 18-7 victory to end the series sweep at home against the St. Louis Cardinals. Next up, we have a potential NL playoff matchup that I believe could definitely happen as the San Diego Padres would travel to Chicago and face the Cubs. And what was their opening series at home this season, and the Cubs would start it off great with 2 wins immediately behind wonderful pitching as Shota Imanaga leads them to victory in Game 1 with 7 1/3 innings pitched of 1-run ball as the Cubs take Game 1 3-1, and then Matthew Boyd would enter Game 2 with something to prove as he throws a 6-inning shutout against the San Diego Padres as the Cubs win that one 7-1. Then on Sunday, the Cubs would go for the series sweep, and they'd be so close if not for an error by Justin Turner in the ninth that gave the Padres the go-ahead run. And the Padres would shut out the Cubs in that ninth inning to end up winning 8-7 just to salvage the series and going into the new week. Only a couple series left for the weekend, and this next one would be highlighted by two superstars that'll eventually be overpaid DHs as Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s Blue Jays travel to New York to face Juan Soto in the Mets. The Mets would start the weekend off right with a 5-0 victory. And then the Blue Jays would come back with Chris Bassett on the second day to throw a 6 2/3 innings shutout. But my gosh, the bullpen decided to blow it. And the Mets come back late to get the walk-off victory on Saturday to win 3-2. And then on Sunday, the Mets close out the series with a sweep as they win 2-1 and send the Blue Jays home disappointed until news broke that Vladdy decided to stay in Toronto with a $500 million 14-year extension. And we'll talk about that after all these series because I have a few things to say. Next up, in the second to last series of the weekend, the Cleveland Guardians would travel to LA to face the Angels, where Jose Ramirez decided he was going to have a field day. 3 home runs as Jose leads the Guardians to an 8-6 victory. Emmanuel Clase would come in to close things out, and he gives up a few runs, and my gosh, Cleveland fans might be a little worried right now. For those of you that don't know, Clase, who was pretty much the best all-around pitcher in baseball last year, he is a closer, but statistically, in 75 innings pitched as a closer, he gave up only 5 runs, okay? This season on 4 innings pitched, he's already gave up 3. Now, of course, somebody like that can adjust, and I believe he will, but Cleveland fans sure are a little worried to start the season, so we'll see how he kind of fixes things. Maybe he's hurt, hopefully not, but I do think that Clase will become Clase soon enough, but my gosh, that stat line definitely, it's worrisome. In Game 2, Tanner Bybee would give up 7 runs in 4 innings as the Angels clobber 4 home runs to get a 10-4 victory in Game 2. And then Game 3, nothing exciting would happen, but the Angels take the series with a 6-2 victory on Sunday as they continue their interesting start to the season. We'll get to the standings in a minute. Finally, in what was probably the most exciting series of the entire weekend, and again, what is probably going to be an NL playoff matchup, if not the championship series. These two teams are in the thick of it every single season. We had the Los Angeles Dodgers travel to the Philadelphia Phillies for an absolute matchup of starting pitching aces. Jesus Luzardo would welcome the Dodgers into town with a 7-inning shutout. But Yamamoto comes back and says, watch what I can do, as he pitches 6 innings and allows 1 unearned run. But the Phillies hold on to give the Dodgers their first loss of the season in a close 3-2 victory. In Game 2, the nervous Roki Sasaki would take the mound, and he would impress in front of a Philly crowd that we all know can rattle the opposing players. He pitches 4 innings and only allows 1 run as the Dodgers would go on to take Game 2 3-1. But the Phillies would bounce back in that Sunday game to take the series 2 out of 3 games at home by getting to Tyler Glasnow early as Nick Castellanos hits a grand slam and the Phillies win 8-7. But a little bad news on top of losing the series, the LA Dodgers placed Blake Snell on the 15-day injured list. But that's all the series for the weekend. Again, this is going to be a work in progress. Hopefully I'm going to get better at rattling things off smoother. Okay, it's a lot. There's a lot of series. So it's going to take some time, but as practice, as I get practice, it'll get better. I definitely like this format, going series by series. And so I think that's how I'm going to stick with it. Let me know in the comments, what you guys think. But we'll go ahead, we'll get on to the standings, and then I'll talk Vladdy. Now remember, although I'm going over the weekend series, this is being filmed on Tuesday. So as of Tuesday, April 8th, these are what the standings are. And we'll start in the AL East, where the Toronto Blue Jays, the Boston Red Sox, and the New York Yankees are tied for first at 6-5. Then you have the Orioles a game back at 5-6, and then finally the Tampa Bay Rays a game back at 4-5. And then in the American League Central, you have the Detroit Tigers atop the division at 7-4, with the Royals at 5-5 in second, followed by the 4-6 Guardians, the 3-7 Twins, and the 2-8 White Sox. That division is not off to a great start this season. Finishing off the American League with the West, you have the Texas Rangers at 8-3 atop the West, followed by the Los Angeles Angels a game back at 6-3. And then in third, you have the 4-6 Astros, followed by the 4-7 Seattle Mariners and the 4-7 A's. Now to the National League West, you have the red-hot Padres, who sit atop the division at 9-2 with a 7-0 home record, followed by the 8-2 San Francisco Giants, and then the 9-3 Los Angeles Dodgers, tied for second. After the Dodgers, you have a 3.5 game setback until you get to fourth, where the Arizona Diamondbacks sit at 5-6, followed by the 2-7 Colorado Rockies. Then to the National League Central, the Chicago Cubs sit atop that division with an 8-5 record, followed by the 5-5 Milwaukee Brewers, the 4-6 St. Louis Cardinals, and then you have the 4-7 Pirates and the 4-7 Reds. And my gosh, the two Central divisions are not looking hot to start the season. It is rough out there in the Central. But we'll finish things off with the National League East, where the Philadelphia Phillies are 7-2, tied for first with the 8-3 New York Mets. And then third place, you have the Miami Marlins at 5-6, just ahead of the 4-6 Washington Nationals. And then in last place in the National League East, you have the team with the worst record in Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves, at 1-8. And I picked them to win that division, so we're off to a bad start, but plenty of season left. So that's the standings for you guys. And I greatly appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. I'll get that out, hopefully, as soon as the series ends, I believe on Thursday. So stay tuned for that. And again, share, like, comment, subscribe, do it all. It helps me out. I just greatly appreciate all the support, you guys. And I just hope you guys stay patient with me as I try to maneuver through all the new ideas I'm coming up with. I know this episode isn't that smooth. I know the last couple haven't been that smooth, but we're making progress. We'll get there, and I love it, you guys. I love talking baseball, and so just thank you for everything. But before I let you go, we'll talk Vladdy real fast. So 14 years, $500 million. And look, the Blue Jays had to do it. Okay, you've got to keep that star. We've seen them come so close to getting guys like Judge, Ohtani, Soto, or at least close. That's what the rumors were. And they have money to spend. Okay, so I believe they were actually in the running for these guys. It's just whether or not they were actually ever that close to getting them. But they ink up Vladdy, and it's a good one. It's good for the fans. They know he's going to be there. He's going to show up. We still don't know if he's going to be able to stay consistent. We've seen him. I think in 2021, he finished second MVP behind Ohtani, before Ohtani went to the National League. But ever since then, up until last year, 2024, he kind of just showed decline, okay? And so, hopefully after last season, we know, hopefully he just continues that. He had an amazing year last year. He hit over 300. He had like a 900 OPS. But we'll have to see him continue that. And unfortunately, as I mentioned in the Blue Jays-Mets series, I don't see him playing the field for more than 5 years of that 14-year deal. So, while I do think they needed to do it, I just don't like the long-term deals. The $500 million, if you have to spend it, spend it. That's not the biggest problem, but 14 years? Teams aren't going to want to trade for that contract. 5-6 years from now, the Blue Jays are just in a toilet bowl. You know, he's going to be a hard contract to get off of. And so I just think investing 14 years, none of it's deferred, okay, which is good, you know, because you don't want to be paying 20 years from now, you know, 20 million. But I only see him being top of the league, you know, for the next 6 years maybe. And I mean, that contract runs until he's 40. Okay, he's 26 now, so you get 5 to 6 years prime Vlad, and then it's probably DH Vlad with just not top tier numbers. And so same thing with Soto, man. It's just these long-term contracts. If I was an owner, it'd be hard for me to pull the trigger on those. But I guess if you've got the money and you need the fans to show up to games, then you got to do what you got to do. But that's pretty much how I feel on that. So thank you guys for tuning in, and just keep a lookout for that next episode. Thank you.